What if I told you that the greatest reason many people never rise is not because they lack talent, but because they failed a test they didn't even know they were taking? Right now, you might be in a silent season, unseen, delayed, stretched, corrected, and you think nothing is happening. But what if heaven is watching more closely in your hidden moments than it ever will on your biggest stage? Before God lifts a man, he tests him quietly, deeply, intentionally. Stay with me, because if you can recognize these 4 silent tests, you won't just survive your season, you will step into your elevation prepared and unstoppable. There are dealings of God that are not announced. There are seasons where heaven goes quiet, prayers seem suspended in the air, and destiny appears motionless. Yet in that silence, God is working. Before lifting a man, before placing him on a platform, before trusting him with influence, there are tests. They are silent. They are unseen. And many fail them because they do not discern that they are being examined. The first test is the test of obscurity. Can you remain faithful when nobody knows your name? When your gift is hidden, when your effort is uncelebrated, when your labor is unnoticed? Many desire manifestation, but few survive concealment. Obscurity is where motives are purified. It is where ambition dies and purpose is refined. If you cannot serve God without applause, you are not ready for influence. Heaven watches what you do when there is no audience. The second test is the test of delay. Delay is dangerous because it tempts the heart toward doubt. You prayed, you believed, you received prophetic words, yet nothing moves. In that waiting, God measures your consistency. Will you still pray? Will you still serve? Will you still believe when the timeline stretches beyond your expectation? Delay builds endurance. It fortifies conviction. A man who survives delay becomes unshakable in manifestation. The third test is the test of character. Power without character is destruction waiting to happen. Before God gives influence, he inspects integrity. Can you handle offense without retaliation? Can you manage access without corruption? Can you stay humble when you are correct? Character is built in private decisions. It is formed when compromise is convenient but rejected. Elevation without character becomes a curse, not a blessing. The fourth test is the test of loyalty and honor. Destiny is relational. God observes how you treat authority, how you speak about those who mentor you, how you handle correction. Dishonor closes doors silently. Loyalty preserves covering. A man who cannot submit to structure cannot be entrusted with leadership. Before God makes you a voice, he tests whether you can follow one. These tests are silent because they are internal. No certificate announces that you passed. No crowd applauds your endurance, but heaven records it. And when the measure is full, lifting comes suddenly. When the season shifts, it will look like speed, but it was built in silence. If you are in a hidden season, do not despise it. If you are waiting, do not faint. If you are being corrected, do not resist. The silence is not abandonment. It is preparation. Because when God lifts a man, He does it in a way that no man can bring him down. The first silent test before God lifts a man is the test of obscurity. This is the season where a man is hidden, uncelebrated, unrecognized, and often misunderstood. It is the season where there is genuine potential, but no platform grace, but no audience capacity, but no visibility. Many people pray for elevation, but few understand that before God announces a man publicly, he refines him privately. Obscurity is not punishment, it is protection. It is the hidden workshop of heaven, where motives are examined and intentions are purified. In obscurity, a man confronts himself. When there is no applause to feed the ego, when there are no invitations to validate significance, the heart is forced to answer a critical question. Why are you truly doing what you are doing? If service to God is tied to recognition, obscurity will frustrate you. If faithfulness is dependent on visibility, you will grow weary. God uses hidden seasons to remove the addiction to applause. He allows a man to serve where nobody claps, to give where nobody posts about it, to pray where nobody hears it, so that the foundation of his life is built on devotion and not validation. Obscurity also builds discipline. When a man knows he is unseen yet continues to wake up early to pray, continues to study, continues to sharpen his gift, continues to serve with excellence, something powerful is being formed within him. Consistency without recognition produces spiritual stamina. It teaches a man to derive satisfaction from obedience rather than attention. Heaven measures faithfulness differently from men. Men reward results. God rewards obedience. In obscurity, obedience becomes the primary focus. This season tests patience in a way few other seasons can. It is easy to assume that being unnoticed means being forgotten. The mind begins to question whether the promises spoken will ever manifest. Comparison becomes a temptation. You see others rising, others celebrated, others seemingly advancing faster. If care is not taken, envy can quietly corrupt the heart. But obscurity trains a man to focus on his assignment rather than someone else's progress. It cultivates trust in divine timing. It reminds him that destiny is not a competition, but a calling. Another dimension of obscurity is skill refinement. When a man is hidden, he has the opportunity to grow without pressure. He can make mistakes without public scrutiny. He can develop depth without the distraction of popularity. Many people are exposed too early and collapse under the weight of expectations because they were never allowed to mature in secret. God often hides those he intends to use greatly because premature visibility can damage undeveloped character. Hidden seasons create depth. They allow roots to grow before branches are displayed. Obscurity also tests gratitude. Can you thank God for where you are while believing him for more? Can you serve faithfully in a small space while carrying a big vision? Gratitude in small beginnings attracts greater responsibility. If a man despises little opportunities, he reveals that his heart is more in love with prominence than purpose. God observes how you treat what you have now before deciding whether you are ready for more. In this silent test, loyalty is revealed as well. When there is no reward in sight, will you still stay committed? When the work feels repetitive and unseen, will you still show up? Obscurity exposes whether a man's commitment is to God or to outcomes. It strips away pretense and reveals authenticity. The man who survives obscurity emerges purified, disciplined, patient, skilled, grateful, and loyal. By the time elevation comes, he is not intoxicated by it because he has already been validated in secret. When God finally brings him into visibility, the platform does not change him because the hidden years have already defined him. The second silent test before God lifts a man is the test of delay. Delay is one of the most misunderstood dealings of God because to the natural mind, movement equals progress and speed equals favor. When nothing appears to be changing, when prayers seem unanswered and prophecies appear suspended, the heart begins to wrestle with uncertainty. Yet in the economy of heaven, delay is not denial, it is development. God uses delay to stretch a man beyond surface faith into deep conviction. When a word is spoken over your life and time begins to pass without visible manifestation, something begins to happen internally. Excitement fades. External encouragement reduces. What remains is the naked decision to believe. Delay strips faith of emotional excitement and forces it to become a settled persuasion. It is easy to believe when confirmation is constant. It is harder to believe when silence persists. In that silence, God measures stability. Can you hold on to what he said when circumstances contradict it? Can you remain consistent when there is no physical evidence that anything is shifting? Delay exposes motives. Sometimes what we truly desire is not the promise itself, but the prestige attached to it. When fulfillment takes longer than expected, those hidden motives surface. Impatience reveals whether the heart seeks God or merely what he can give. If your devotion weakens because manifestation is slow, it shows that the blessing may have become greater than the blesser in your heart. Delay purifies desire. It separates genuine pursuit from conditional loyalty. There is also the test of consistency within delay. Many begin strong, but grow weary when results are not immediate. Prayer becomes less intense. Service becomes mechanical. Passion begins to decline. Yet heaven watches for endurance. The man who continues to pray when answers seem postponed, who continues to prepare when opportunities are not yet visible, who continues to serve faithfully when promotion has not arrived, is developing spiritual resilience. Delay builds capacity. It strengthens the inner structure so that when the weight of elevation comes, it does not crush him. Delay also cultivates humility. Quick success can create illusions of self-sufficiency, but when a man waits, he learns dependence. He learns that destiny cannot be forced. He realizes that divine timing is beyond human control. This realization produces surrender. It breaks pride and replaces it with trust. A man who has waited deeply rarely boasts loudly because he understands that fulfillment came not by strategy alone, but by mercy. Another dimension of delay is preparation. Often what feels like stagnation is actually construction. God may be aligning people, shaping circumstances, arranging connections, and orchestrating events beyond your awareness. While you think nothing is happening, foundations are being laid in places you cannot see. If elevation came prematurely, the environment might not sustain it. Delay ensures synchronization. It aligns the man with the moment. Delay also confronts comparison. Watching others advance while you remain in waiting can provoke insecurity. The temptation is to rush ahead, compromise standards, or manipulate opportunities just to feel progress. But yielding to that pressure can sabotage destiny. The test is whether you can celebrate others without doubting your own journey. Trusting divine timing requires resisting the urge to compete. It demands confidence that what is meant for you cannot be stolen by another. There is a maturity that only delay can produce. Quick breakthroughs can excite, but prolonged waiting deepens character. It teaches emotional stability. It refines discernment. It strengthens patience. The man who survives delay learns to anchor his joy not in outcomes, but in relationship with God. His worship is no longer based on results, but on revelation. When the season of waiting finally shifts, the manifestation often appears sudden to observers. People call it overnight success. They do not see the years of endurance, the quiet tears, the repeated prayers, the unwavering discipline. But heaven remembers. The man who passed the test of delay emerges steady, humble, resilient, and prepared. Elevation then becomes sustainable because it rests on a foundation built through waiting. The third silent test before God lifts a man is the test of character. Character is the invisible architecture that sustains visible success. Many people desire power, influence, and recognition, but heaven is more concerned with the integrity of the vessel than the magnitude of the assignment. Before God entrusts a man with greater responsibility, he examines his inner life. This examination is quiet, often unnoticed, but it is decisive. Character is revealed in the small, private decisions that no one applauds. It is formed when compromise is available but rejected. It is strengthened when integrity costs something yet is still chosen. In the hidden moments where there is opportunity to manipulate, exaggerate, or take shortcuts, heaven watches. A man may be gifted and intelligent, but without character, those gifts become dangerous. Power amplifies whatever already exists in the heart. If pride, insecurity, or dishonesty remain unchecked, elevation will magnify them. One of the clearest indicators of character is how a man handles offense. Life will provide opportunities to be misunderstood, overlooked, or even mistreated. In those moments, the reaction of the heart reveals maturity. Does he retaliate, gossip, and harbor resentment, or does he respond with restraint and wisdom? Unresolved bitterness contaminates destiny. God often allows situations that expose emotional instability so that healing can occur before influence expands. A wounded leader will wound others. Therefore, before lifting a man, God ensures that his heart is not governed by unresolved pain. Another dimension of character is humility. Humility is not weakness. It is accurate self-perception. It is the ability to recognize that every gift and opportunity is a trust, not a personal achievement. Pride can quietly grow even in spiritual environments. When a man begins to believe that success is solely the product of his ability, he becomes vulnerable. The test of character measures whether gratitude remains intact as growth occurs. Can he receive correction without defensiveness? Can he admit mistakes without shifting blame? A teachable spirit is evidence of strength, not inadequacy. Character is also tested through stewardship. When entrusted with small responsibilities, how does he manage them? Faithfulness is not proven in grand opportunities, but in routine tasks. If a man neglects minor assignments, he demonstrates carelessness. If he handles limited resources dishonestly, greater resources cannot be trusted to him. God evaluates consistency, the discipline to complete what has been assigned, even when it feels insignificant, forms reliability. Reliability builds credibility. Credibility invites greater trust. The test of character includes purity of motive. Why does he seek elevation? Is it to serve or to be seen? Motives shape behavior. When recognition becomes the primary goal, compromise becomes tempting. Character ensures that purpose remains central. It guards the heart from chasing applause instead of impact. God refines motives so that when influence arrives, it is stewarded with sincerity rather than self-exaltation. Pressure is another instrument used in this test. Stress reveals what comfort conceals. Under pressure, true attitudes surface. If anger, impatience, or dishonesty appear consistently under strain, they signal areas needing transformation. God allows seasons of difficulty to expose weaknesses before they become public failures. Correction in private is mercy. Exposure in public is consequence. Character development is therefore an act of divine protection. The man who passes the test of character becomes stable. His identity is not dependent on position. His integrity is not negotiable. His humility remains intact, even as opportunities increase. When God finally lifts him, the elevation does not distort him because his foundation is strong. Influence then becomes a channel for service rather than a stage for ego. The fourth silent test before God lifts a man is the test of loyalty and honor. Destiny is never fulfilled in isolation. No matter how gifted or anointed a person may be, life is structured around relationships, authority, mentorship, and divine order. Before God entrusts a man with influence, he examines how that man responds to structure. Loyalty is not merely staying present. It is maintaining integrity of heart within relationships, especially when emotions fluctuate. Loyalty is tested most when feelings change. It is easy to be committed when you feel celebrated, understood, and supported. The true examination comes when correction is given, when preferences are not prioritized, or when recognition seems delayed. In those moments, the heart is weighed. Does he become defensive and distant, or does he remain stable and respectful? Honor is revealed in response, not in convenience. God observes how a man speaks about those placed over him, how he handles disagreement, and whether he preserves dignity even when he could criticize. Honor is a spiritual principle that sustains access. Dishonor may not produce immediate consequences, but it closes doors quietly. Words spoken carelessly about leaders, mentors, or institutions create invisible barriers. A man who constantly finds fault in authority demonstrates an inability to submit. Submission is not inferiority, it is alignment with order. If a person cannot function faithfully under leadership, he is not prepared to lead others. Authority requires an understanding of accountability. God will not grant responsibility to someone who rejects structure. Another dimension of this test is faithfulness in service. Loyalty is expressed through consistent contribution, not occasional enthusiasm. When tasks feel repetitive or unnoticed, the temptation is to withdraw effort. But heaven watches consistency. Can he remain dependable without constant affirmation? Can he continue to support a vision that is not entirely his own? Many desire to lead movements, yet struggle to support one. The willingness to strengthen another man's assignment proves maturity. It reveals freedom from insecurity. This test also confronts ambition. There is nothing wrong with aspiration, but uncontrolled ambition breeds rivalry. If a man views those above him as obstacles rather than coverings, his heart is not ready for elevation. Loyalty celebrates progress without competing for position. It recognizes that seasons differ and that promotion comes from God, not manipulation. Attempting to secure influence by undermining others reveals a deficiency of trust. God lifts those who wait with integrity rather than those who scheme with impatience. Correction is a critical part of this examination. When mistakes are pointed out, how does he respond? Resistance to correction signals pride. Acceptance of guidance signals growth. Honor acknowledges that wisdom can come from those ahead. A teachable spirit sustains longevity. Many rise quickly, but fall faster because they refuse instruction. Loyalty remains even when correction is uncomfortable. It understands that discipline is not rejection, but refinement. Gratitude is intertwined with honor. Remembering those who contributed to your journey protects the heart from arrogance. When success begins to appear, it becomes tempting to detach from past relationships or minimize prior support. Loyalty resists that impulse. It values covenant over convenience. It maintains respect even as influence expands. The man who passes the test of loyalty and honor develops relational strength. He understands authority because he has submitted to it. He leads with empathy because he has followed faithfully. When God finally lifts him, he does not misuse power because he respects the weight of it. His elevation does not produce rebellion in others because it is rooted in integrity. Influence entrusted to a loyal heart becomes sustainable and secure. Before God lifts a man, he prepares him. Before visibility comes refinement. Before influence comes inspection. The four silent tests are not obstacles, they are qualifications. Obscurity builds purity of motive. Delay builds endurance and trust. Character builds stability and integrity. Loyalty and honor build relational strength and spiritual covering. Each test works quietly, shaping the inner life long before the outer life changes. Many people pray for elevation, but few pray for the capacity to sustain it. Yet God, in his wisdom, is more committed to your longevity than your speed. He would rather take time to build you than rush to expose you. What feels like silence is often construction. What feels like waiting is alignment. What feels like pressure is strengthening. If you find yourself hidden, remain faithful. If you are delayed, remain consistent. If your character is being stretched, embrace correction. If your loyalty is being tested, guard your heart. Heaven is not indifferent, it is intentional. The lifting of a man by God is not accidental, and it is never premature. When the season is complete and the measure is full, elevation will come in a way that cannot be denied or reversed. And when it comes, it will not just reveal your gift, it will reveal the depth that was formed in silence.